Good morning. How are you today? Archie says hello too. Hello. Was that necessary? Last video we talked about the fear pathway and how that somehow was a byproduct of our evolutionary process. We talked about how there might potentially be a mismatch between the fear we feel and the actual fear stimuli that's out there, and how our brains evolved to be afraid of quote unquote monsters because that was the world we inhabited a long time ago when we were cave people. But are those threats still relevant today? And why do we still get stress and anxiety in potentially the same way as we always did, but obviously from different sources? And this is really an evolutionary mismatch, if you like, or an evolutionary byproduct, which is actually no longer relevant today. A bit like us, our need for eating sugar. We could understand how in the past we really needed a lot of sugar because it was very scarce. Whereas now, when we have sugar pretty much at our fingertips, why do we still crave it so? So there's some interesting questions about how our evolution is still relevant today, but is it? One thing I want to, well, actually, the last video I sort of ended on the idea as to why do we still get anxiety if the world that we inhabit now is no longer the world that we used to inhabit, is no longer relevant in that respect. I mean, so one of the interesting things I've read, which I want to share with you based on that one, because I said last time I know, or I think I know, or I may have discovered, or whatever, is the work of Williams and Hesse, which are two American psychiatrists. And they wrote a book called Why Do We Still Get Sick, or Why Do We Get Sick? And the basic premise, which I think makes a lot of sense, is that our body, our brain, our whole bioorganism, if you like, is built for reproduction. Essentially, we are built to reproduce, to have sex. That's our primary purpose as a species. So therefore, our body isn't actually, or our brain isn't actually designed, or hasn't actually evolved to protect us necessarily from illness or from mental illness for that matter. Our primary purpose is to procreate and therefore to get the species moving forward, right? Now, because of this, essentially sometimes our brain will do what's not necessarily the best for us, but will pursue that element of having sex. How many times have you had this, oh, I think this person is not good for me. I think they're toxic. I think they're really not a very good fit. I don't think this is a good relationship, but I really fancy them. I really want to sleep with them. I really want to have sex with them. And this is, again, part of our brain that's telling us, have sex with that person, have sex with that person, go have sex. And not necessarily whether that's good for us, whether it's bad for us, whether that's actually a relationship worth pursuing, or so forth. So maybe it's an interesting idea to keep in mind when you're analyzing your relationships as to, oh, why is my brain letting me do this? Why do I always do that? Do I have a pattern? Do I have a type when I pick a partner? Well, maybe you do, in a sense that maybe you just want to have sex with a particular type of person, and the other traits that person has don't necessarily come into it straight away. Now, again, this is an element of the subconscious in here. It's not the fact that your brain actively decides to do what's worse for you in order to have sex. The idea is that the brain subconsciously picks, if you like, a certain type that you would want to have sex with, ignoring any other traits, because that's what it's designed to do. Does that make sense? Now, I hear you ask, and I'll leave you on this note today. I hear you ask, but what about gay people? Surely they're necessarily their drive isn't necessarily to procreate. They are attracted to potentially different things, and that doesn't come into it. But it does to a certain extent. Maybe not with a direct partner, but it still does. And why that is, I will tell you next time. Until then, look after yourselves. Have lots of sex, I suppose, but watch who you're having sex with. Have a good one.